Welcome to this Last Mile Profits video, the last word on the last mile. Australia Post versus Royal Mail, pretty topical right now. Find out more after this. Experience the future of convenience with modern Expo parcel lockers. Cutting-edge innovations that bring parcel delivery to a fundamentally new level. Follow the link in the description to find the best solution for your business. So we're back to Australia again. Once again, I'm delighted to have this videocast with Wojtek, and we're going to actually dive deeper into the postal world. You know, there's been a lot of material recently about the woes facing Royal Mail, and, you know, I don't envy the team that have to deal with that situation. But from what I gather, Wojtek, it's a little bit different in Australia. And while, of course, you know, every postal operator now is suffering from declining mail volumes, the USO, etc., what's the situation for Australia Post? I think they're in a lot better place than Royal Mail at the moment.
Yes and no. You're right. Postal organisations are facing very similar challenges, and very much depends on what their obligations are. So in Australia, the Postal Act was every day, every street. So there was no room for consolidation of the letters. And yes, it did pile up, and Australia Post reported huge losses, like $200 million loss the previous year. And they immediately entered the negotiations with authorities, with the government, to change the regulations, so that they can actually be more efficient in their operations. So in that sense, I think there was a very swift and decisive negotiations, or entering negotiations with the right people at the right level, with the right plan, because it has been approved, so they might have done a good job preparing. And I think they are in a much better shape now.
But you know what, I think that the storyline which for me is interesting, is every post suffers in some form or other with the universal service obligation. But on the parcel side, you have some posts that are able to actually have a meaningful position, and particularly out of home. So if we were to compare Royal Mail with Australia Post, from what I remember, and you correct me please if I'm wrong, but Australia Post has a pretty strong position, if not dominant, I'd say, in the out-of-home and parcel segment, which certainly isn't the case in the United Kingdom for Royal Mail. So what's the situation there?
It's definitely true, and part of it is the geography and this broader role of Australia Post. So they are the entity that covers the whole of the continent. So if you're looking for a carrier that can cover the whole country, Australia Post is the place to go. And that makes it so much an easier choice for all the senders, all the e-commerce, and anybody who wants to deliver across the country.
And there's effectively nobody else with that level of coverage. You know, you've got Tasmania, you've got sort of places out there in the sticks. I would imagine no one is anywhere close to that.
Yeah, it's thousands of kilometers of travel. So yeah, it's really, I think it's really Australia Post. Of course, everybody, I mean, there is a few other players, but they seem to be playing more of a niche roles rather than challenging Australia Post. You've got, of course, Team Global Express, like the ex-Toll group, which was changing hands recently, Japan Post, and then Allegro Funds. So we'll see how they go in terms of their offering for the B2C market.
Great, and we've got our friend David at Hub, who I think in terms of out of home has a pretty meaningful alternative network. The final thing I'd like to ask you is, you know, there's this big debate, open versus closed. Traditionally, most posts would go for the closed model because the thinking being, you know, our advantage is our network, we're not going to give that advantage to anyone else. On the other hand, there's a second way of thinking, which is that, you know, if you bring others into that network, they make it even stronger. You can afford to have even more points. It's more efficient and ecologically smart. So, and actually, in a way, it means it's much more difficult for someone to compete later because the network becomes even stronger. My understanding is at the moment that AusPost is a long way away from the open network thinking.
I think the thinking is there. It's just come to think of it, Marek, on the one hand, you've got a closed network. You've got a locker bank that has, say, 80 doors. You have a driver who rocks up at their locker and completes 80 or up to 160 transactions in one courier stop. Yeah? So that's your consolidation, and that's your really a way to build a competitive advantage in terms of the costs. And then you've got the idea of the open network, of how do we prevent other people from building their own networks, or how do we feed on other people's volumes. And of course that comes with a few challenges as well. So one is the data protection and how comfortable other carriers are using competitors' network. That's one thing. And then the consolidation is so much less, because if you have an open network, and again you've got those, say, 80 doors, and you rent 20 to 4 different carriers, or even 10 to 8 carriers, all of a sudden the consolidation is not that exciting. So having your own network, yeah.
Wojtek, now I've got to jump in here, and I'm really pleased you said this, because this is the classic thing on closed versus open networks. There is a way, there's a secret sauce, we won't share it here, but there is a secret sauce to avoid that. You can have an open network consolidating volumes without giving direct access to your machine, because I agree that is not efficient. You end up having potentially 3 or 4 carriers going to the same machine, which effectively eliminates a lot of the benefits. But maybe that's one for another discussion.
Of course.
Thanks for watching this Last Mile Profits video. For more up-to-date last mile news and analysis, subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on LinkedIn.